I am Phil Tippett, and I am the founder of Tippett Studio. I was invited to FMX, for I think primarily the visual effects community and the students. What I'm interested in is like the local student body more than anything else. Not necessarily the visual effects community of people that I know, which is great to be able to, congregate together and share things and ideas. But I think what you find is that with people about my age, when you're sitting at the restaurant or the bar, you are talking to a bunch of grumpy old men, and they are complaining about the business side of things. So what's like really cool about this is to be able to engage with like students who have not hit that barrier yet and that are young and hopeful, and you can talk to about art and philosophy, and business people don't do that. I operate from a position of exploration. There was an artist that was being interviewed that when asked, what's the difference between a craftsman and an artist? He said a craftsman knows what they're doing and an artist does not. And so there's that balance between these two things. Like the craftsman side is kind of like a drug that it's like a security blanket that you can always go back to. And if you are depressed or you are anxious, you can always take the drug and go into it and lose yourself. And on the other side, there's the age of exploration where you don't know what you're doing. And you're, as Picasso said, I do not seek, I find. It's like I'm looking and I'm trying to find something. And you don't know. So it's a balance between that kind of stasis of craft and unknowing of art that you seek the balance of, and so that's kind of what I'm about. So I've been alive for a long time. I've got like a history of working on a lot of popular movies, and then I do a lot of stuff that's like outside of the orbit of commercial culture as well, and that's where I prefer to live, is out there. I've got to do a day job to earn money, but so did everybody else, going back into history. Like Michelangelo and Da Vinci had to do the same things. They had to, work for the church, but then they figured out through nefarious, ways to do some truly innovative work. And it's a matter of positioning yourself so that you're able to do that. You got to earn money. You don't have to like what you're doing. Sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. But that allows you to go someplace else. It's like getting money to put together a voyage on a sailing ship, and sometimes that voyage, could turn out to be the Franklin expedition, which is like a total failure, or somehow, like Shackleton, you come back alive, and you don't know. You have no idea. But that's like, to me, the creative adventure. When we talk about people, I think we have to be clear about who the people are in a professional milieu. And those people generally are the people at the studios. And they don't really understand. They know CG, but they don't even understand what that is. We'll do it with CG, which means we can push it downstream. We don't have to think about it in a production context so much. It can be worried about later on. And So the art or the craftsmanship has been commodified and used and abused, not by everyone. There are directors like Verhoeven or, Guillermo del Toro, who understand the craft and appreciate the artistry that goes into things. From my position, if I'm directing animators, the studio position is they're these guys that pushes buttons and makes things move around and stuff like that. But you wouldn't treat Gary Oldman like that. They're actors, and they're talented, people that have something to say and to deliver. So, as a director of animation, I will try and cast for the roles. They're guys that do comedy better than horror, or like animals other than whatever. And so you try and get the right fit with the intention of making your job as easy as you can possibly make it yourself. And if you can cast things properly, then, when you have gotten the scene and gotten the cut from editorial and you're running it for the animators, give them the context of the scene. Here's the shot you're working on, and we'll loop the shot over and over and over. And it's so you can see what's going to happen. This thing is going to come in here from the right. It's going to jump over the river, and it's going to run off into the woods. And see you later. Because what I've learned, and this was a trick from George Lucas, was that everybody makes their own movie in their own head. And one movie is as good as another. It doesn't even fucking matter. And so if you infuse respect into an artist, you get so much more back for nothing then. And you just say, go for it. You show me. You tell me what to do. I'm directing you to direct me. You go for it. And I will see you tomorrow. And they'll do a blocking pass. And I'll go yeah, that's nothing like I was thinking of at all. But you know what? It's kind of cool. And that made me think, what if, and that's where you want to be. What if we did this? And then they go, yeah, and we could do, and then you're like children, that are you're playing creatively. It's not fucking work. It's just, that's where you want to find this zone of creativity. And that's a trick. That's how I operate. Well, in terms of making decisions about how you're going to approach doing a shot or a scene, it's a given that 99.999% is going to be computer graphic, unless there's a photographic background plate that you're putting 10% of the character imagery into. When possible, it's easier to shoot elements like smoke or fire or something like that practically. You just light a match. And you can do, a bunch of procedural stuff, and that works for some stuff, but you can do a lot of stuff very cheaply and shoot it on a video and comp it into the shot. And a lot of people do that. But it's very minimal. It's insequential kind of background filler, flickering flames, whatever, a little bit of smoke, whatever. And, but everything is pretty much all exclusively computer graphic. That's the language of today. The shop, on the other. So I maintain a stage that gives us the latitude to be able to do anything that we need to do practically. And that might be nothing for 6 months, and then it might be a shoot for a day or half a day or 3 weeks, or, we'll bring in some animals for a day and a half to like do reference on. And therein is like the value of having a workspace. But then I also co-opt the thing, and I'm adamant about like keeping a workspace and saws and drill presses and lathes and mills and all these other tools, because I'm also interested in keeping alive the craft and the skill that was at the beginning of cinema, and not losing sight of that procedurally and in a craftsman-like context, in an artistic context, and in an intellectual context, which is things get forgotten. And stuff that gets forgotten maybe shouldn't have gotten forgotten. And there's a lot that has been forgotten in silent film that I think people need to be reminded of. Does it play to a contemporary audience of cell phone users and video games? Probably not. So what you've done is, on a creative level, is you've limited your sphere of your audience, but it's with the intention of not letting something die, and just keeping it going and not being frightened about stuff, not worrying about a demographic and not worrying about, making $1 billion. It's like, if you pursue stuff along that path as a creative individual, you're answering things within yourself that deal with anxiety or depression and whatever that means. But you're continuing to leave a mark for how stuff could be based on, we forgot how to build the pyramids. They knew, but we forgot, and we don't care. And so I find myself like living in this kind of dreamlike ambience between, a love affair with the beginning of cinema and George Millet and magic and the commodification of craft and the franchise and the boredom that comes with drinking from the fire hose of, the fire hose of franchise. I think if I could start everything over again, I would not choose the path of doing visual effects right now. Because I am, by nature, dyslexic. And it's very hard for me to, when some of the first magic came out of the box, like Photoshop, I was like, this is great. This is like, don't have to deal with the optical printer anymore. Everything can be done like this. And I open up the Bible, and it's like, I can't deal with this. I don't even want to know about this stuff. But I have a studio that has people that know stuff. So I'll take people out to lunch and go like, here, come back, and here's what I want to do. I want to do this, and I want you to tell me only the 6 things that I need to do, which buttons to push to get what I want. I don't care about anything else. And that's pretty much how I operate. Technologically, I have never touched a computer, really, ever in my life. But I work with people that are smarter than I, that are into it, that are compelled. A lot of the guys that I work with wanted to do what I did in the day, which was work with stuff. But the train had left the station, so they're now computer graphic artists, but we have a language of materiality and things and observation that is identical. And so I can communicate effectively with computer graphic artists and craftspeople, and because of background knowledge. I don't know. I mean, I can imagine two things that pop to mind. Maybe be a paleontologist, but there's too much science involved with that. Or maybe become a chef, but there's too much hard work involved with that. So I don't have an answer to that question. I have no fucking idea what I would do if, I slipped into a parallel universe. I think the jury is out in regard to different kinds of performance capture, Andy Serkis type stuff that's being pushed really hard by the New Zealand guys as being a bona fide actor. But I think where the line is, like, I would draw right there is like an argument that I had with Disney when they were trying to, frame the Bill Condon's Beauty and the Beast. And I was involved like very early on, and my argument was like, we should do the best prosthetic makeup we could possibly do in the spirit of Cocteau, because then you will get lightning in a bottle. If you get Belle and the Beast together, you have the potential of getting something. And it's like, well, you know what? We don't want to take responsibility for that. We want to push everything downstream because we don't want to subject an actor to having to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and being comfortable all day long. And it's like, wait a minute, you're paying them, right? And you don't fucking understand that when somebody inhabits an outfit, they become that thing. They can become something greater, and it's there. It's just there. And they go like, well, what did you think about Planet of the Apes? It was like, the apes were fucking great, but Gary Oldman's a great actor, and he did the shittiest job in his life on that movie because, and he said it in interviews, he couldn't take the fucking thing seriously to see like a guy walking around like in a motion capture suit. It's just, there's not a connection. And they go like, okay, well, then what's your argument? It's like, Charles Laughton, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and The Elephant Man. And it was like, I don't know if they even knew what I was talking about, the Disney executives, it's like, and it almost didn't matter because they had already made up their mind for what they were going to do. They were going to make their problems go south. And it was going to be a production issue, and it was going to be a post-production issue, and they were going to get through production. And it's like, okay, that's totally fine. And I got fired off the job being told that we don't feel you would work well within our culture. And it was like, you know what, you're absolutely correct, and I accept that, and you're right. You are right. And it's time for us to part. And they did their thing. It looked like shit, and the movie made $1 billion, so it didn't fucking matter anyhow. So how do you deal with that? It's just, that's where I live.